Welcome in, members. Sorry about the late start today. I had a support call that ran a little bit long and, in fact, wasn't even able to complete it. I'll call the customer back after the show. But yeah, sometimes customers, they don't give you all the information. So I was under the impression they needed some help with something, and it turns out they needed help with about 4 things, and nobody bothered to tell me the other 3. So I was like, all right, I should not have taken that. If I had known, I would have let it go to voicemail and called them after the show. So I apologize for that. I'm trying not to be rude to the customer, but I had very limited time to help them. And I was like, should I do this after the show? Oh, it'll just take a minute. And then they started like, well, this isn't working. What do you mean it's not working? Yeah, so they were trying to do 3 other things that nobody bothered to tell me. So anyway, I was a little bit frazzled, and I apologize for the late show, but I think I have a good excuse. Do I pay a late fee? Welcome in, everyone. Thank you for hanging out with me today. And hello to Eddie Casanova, David Graham, and Mark Gaines saying hello. There's Mortant, as well as Ben Laird and Craig Wilson, Sean Skinner, and Thomas MacT say hello. Luke Greenia, Craig Wilson with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Craig. He says, I appreciate the knowledge you share. Right on. Well, appreciate you, Craig. Andy W6AD says hello from Southern California. Welcome in, Andy. I also see our friend Buster with a £10 super chat saying hello and all the best from Bonnie, Scotland. Temperature in Edinburgh, 56 degrees Fahrenheit or 13.3 degrees Celsius over there. Still a little chilly. We actually got some rain all night and all day yesterday, which was nice. Here in Phoenix, those June rains. We have 105 degrees Fahrenheit coming by the end of the week, and it'll just get hotter from there. So we'll take that rain and that cool down. It also knocks all the dust out of the air. It keeps the air clean. I wish we got rain like twice a month. That would be great, but we're lucky to get it once every 4 or 5 months. So that's going to be the last of it for a while, I'm afraid. James Carter says hello, and let's see, who else do we have joining us? 3D Everything and Jamie McGregor say hello. Richard DeFries says hello. Ben Laird and William Denton say hello. Gregory Howard just renewed membership, now a member for 20 months. He says hello, Carey, Mara, and everyone in the chat. Good day to you all. Happy Monday, Gregory. Thank you for renewing membership. Good to see you, my friend. Ray Harrington says, to keep confusion at a minimum, my name was not available when I signed up. I'm Ray Harrington. I'm not a stranger to Carey or the chat. Well, no, I can see you're not. Your name is in green with the number 6 next to your name. I think there was some miscommunication with myself and Ray. When we do the live shows, public live shows, and I've been on the fence about letting other people into the chat besides members. And Mike's Unboxing recommended, just turn it to subscribers only. We've not done a show with subscribers only where I've not been harassed. So people will sign up to be a subscriber just to harass me, but they never pay. They never support the channel financially. So I think we will end up going back to members only. And I'll tell you why. What I'm doing, when I'm on this side of the camera, I'm trying to do 6 things at the same time. I'm trying to focus on what I'm doing here. I'm trying to watch my frame rate. I'm also trying to watch my connection, make sure I've got a good connection to the servers. I'm also watching my audio. I'm trying to make sure things are in focus. I'm trying to pay attention to the chat room. And I want you to think of it like a busy bar, and I'm a bartender, and you're trying to get my attention because you want a drink. Well, I don't know who you are. You could be a regular in the bar, but you're just a face in the crowd. I'm under a lot of stress. Tell me what you want. Let me get it. Let me serve you, right? But when we do the members only, this is like a private club, and everything's more relaxed, and the urgency of making sure things are in focus and the audio's okay and the connection's okay, and all of that is toned way, way down, and we can slow down and we can take a breath. So when I'm seeing comments just flying into the chat, and somebody says, well, see my earlier comment, I can't. It's like going up to the bartender and it's busy, going, give me the same thing Again, I don't know what I got you. I'm busy. What do you want? You know, well, look it up. I don't have time to look it up. So you can understand that it's very stressful on this side of the camera. So what I want to remind all the members is, when I'm taking, you know, general questions from the public, which I guess is going to stop now because it's just, I've already shut it down once. I've tried it with subscribers. It is very, very stressful. And I am concerned that members will get mixed up in that. So you see, members, you guys have this private club. You have all my attention. I am not under any stress. And you are free to ask me your questions. I can talk about things here that I wouldn't talk about on a public video because the public will never see these videos. And I can spend more time with each of you, if you want to, than I can during a public video where there's 6 times more people in the chat room, right? Or at least viewing. And the chat room gets crazy. So if a member decides, I want to talk to Carey as though it's a members only video during a public video, I just can't ignore everybody else. But in the members only video, then I have all the time in the world to talk to each and every one of you if you want to talk about a particular issue. And I would encourage you to take advantage of that. So I guess Ray had said that he was looking for, and you know, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. It was a very hectic show and I was pretty stressed out. And I am trying to help everyone. Remember, I could have just ignored the question. So the fact that he's like, hey, I got a new computer and I want to know how to move my data from my old one to my new one is how I remember the question. I might not be remembering it correctly. But on top of everything else that's happening, I'm thinking to myself, you just restore your backup. Why is this so hard? And if you don't have a backup, but your data is important enough to move it from one computer to another, the first thing you need to do is get a backup before you do anything else. Like, that is a sincere and grave concern I have, and I don't even want to talk about anything else until you do that. So he comes back and says, no, you misunderstood. I have a backup. I've made a backup. I don't understand the restoration process. Okay, but you made a backup how? And with what software? How did you make the backup? I don't need to know what you made the backup to. Now we need to get into a long conversation, which, by the way, we can have that here. I'm more than happy to have that here. I couldn't do it. I can't do that. I can't spend that much time with one individual on a public live broadcast and just, you know, have one person monopolize a show. And that person could say, well, I didn't know it was going to be that in-depth of a question. So what ends up happening is then that person says, well, you know, you made me feel small or something. And it's like, I don't make you feel anything. Like, you have to choose how you feel. You can't hold me responsible to how you choose to react. My intention was to help you, and the way you phrased your question has nothing to do with moving one computer to another. So even the way the question was presented was completely misrepresented to me, but they don't know, right? In all fairness, they don't know. So the real question all along has nothing to do as far as why they're wanting to restore the data. Doesn't matter why. The question is, as I understand it, how do I restore from my backup? Okay, well, how did you make your backup? There's over 1,000 different ways to make a backup. How did you do that? Did you use a piece of software? If so, what piece of software did you use? Some backups require software to do a restore, but other backups don't. So we have to dive into all of that in order to be able to help you. And so during a live show, my main concern is if your data is important and you don't understand the fundamentals of having a backup, which is how it was presented on the original question, then maybe you shouldn't be doing this. Just hire somebody to do it for you, because we've covered this topic on this channel how many times? You know, what do you think all this talk of Acronis was about? But again, I can't just stop the show for one person, but that person is a member. Why not just come into the members only show when we have time? And when I can spend as much time, it's a whole different thing here. So I'd like all of you to keep that in mind, because the last thing I want to do is upset any of you. That's never my intention. But I also need you in return to understand what's happening on this side of the camera during public videos. You can see how many people are watching. You can see the chat room flying by. And you can even see me getting frustrated with some of the public. Please don't pile on. So You're also always welcome to email us. And I encourage you to do that because sometimes some issues and explanations, we need to go back and forth for a string of emails. It could be 20, 30 emails back and forth, which is a much easier way than trying to do that during a live stream, members only or otherwise. And we will get you the help. We'll get you the answers. But oftentimes we need more information. We don't know what you've done, how you did it, when you did it, and what you're trying to accomplish. So there's a lot of interrogation I have to do to figure out, in order for me to give you the answer you're asking, I need to know all this first. You could say, well, I didn't know that. Fair enough. Fair enough. But we can spend all the time in the world in an email. We don't need to publicly address this back and forth between us while having 200 plus bystanders just being bored and ignored. So in any event, that obviously was probably just as upsetting to me as it was to Ray. And so for that, I apologize that there was this miscommunication. And I believe that in what I'm doing now, I'm hoping to avoid that in the future. If you really need help with something, please ask privately or wait until a members only video, and we can spend much more time with each individual, as I enjoy, by the way. I do enjoy. But on the public videos, I'm also trying to just divide all the time equally among those who choose to participate. And I try to get through it just like a bartender at a busy bar. Tell me your drink, let me get your drink, let me move to the next one. You got people all around the bar, all waiting for a drink. They're all thirsty. Let's go, let's go, let's go. There's always this big rush. All right, so that's how it works behind the camera. It is profoundly stressful. And I hope you'll appreciate my perspective on that. But we're more than happy to provide the best help we can to each and every one of you. Just to be clear. Ray with a $20 super chat. Thank you, Ray. That's very kind of you. And as I mentioned, we're certainly very happy to help you, and we're glad to have you here. It's just, it was just a bad day for me. In fact, after yesterday's show, I forgot to hook up the USB cable on this that goes from the water pump to the motherboard. And last night I started, finishing up the preparation of this computer. I bought a Windows 10 Pro activation key and I activated Windows. I ran Crystal Diskmark to see if I'm getting my Gen 5 speeds, and I am. And then I ran Cinebench and it immediately overheated, which was bizarre. That's when I thought something's wrong with the pump. And the reason I say it was bizarre is when I start Cinebench, the CPU is running in the 30 degrees Celsius range. It's chilly. It's really good. I know that cooler is working. But as soon as I start the test, within 30 seconds, it jumps to 104 degrees Celsius. Holy moly. How did it get 70 degrees hotter or 65 degrees Celsius hotter that quickly unless something's wrong? So that's when I realized, let me put the NZXT software on and see if since the fans on the radiator are connected to the pump, maybe the pump needs some adjustment in the software. That's what the NZXT CAM software is for. So I downloaded the NZXT CAM software last night, and you can tell like my brain is still frazzled because I'm not thinking clearly. And the NZXT software is a free download. Anybody can install it. You don't have to have an NZXT product. I just don't know what good it'll do for you. And I fire it up and it doesn't detect the cooler. Why doesn't it detect the cooler? Oh, I forgot to put the USB cable on, right? That's when it occurred to me. I shut it all down, put the USB cable on, then the motherboard won't turn on anymore. Oh, I've set it on I didn't get it lined up with the pins, the right pins, just offset a little bit. So I unplugged it, plugged it back in, then the system booted up, then the screen on the pump lit up as it's supposed to. I think the screen was lighting up before, but now the NZXT CAM software sees it. Say, okay, let me see if this makes any difference. And sure enough, instead of running to say 105, it's running to 96 degrees Celsius, which is still way too hot, but that made a difference. And again, because the fans are plugged into the pump, how does the pump know? How is it communicating with the motherboard without that USB cable? That makes sense. But it's still running way too hot. So I go into the BIOS, and wouldn't you know, the PL1, which is your long-term power, your normal idle power, and then the PL2, which is your short-term turbo boost power, they're set wrong. Now, this was the big issue with Intel 13th and 14th gen CPUs. And the new generation of Intel CPU, the 15th gen, the one that we've used in this build, you can't send infinite amount of wattage to it like you could on the 13th and 14th. That was what was causing CPUs to burn up. So when I was telling you guys, look, this problem goes away with 15th gen, that problem of sending too much wattage, in fact, does go away. But what doesn't go away are the PL1 and PL2 settings. And what put me off on this motherboard initially was that my latest BIOS is over 2 months old on a brand new motherboard that just came out. Like, this is a really new product. So they should be on top of those BIOS updates, because Intel has released a couple of important BIOS updates to the manufacturers. It's up to each manufacturer to implement them. That improves the performance on the Intel Ultra processors that should have been done on day one, but Intel dragged their feet on it. So there's nothing the manufacturers could have done until Intel provided it to them. And most other motherboard manufacturers came out with an update within that first 3 days. There was a new BIOS update. This hasn't been updated in 2 months. So the first thing I think is, here we go again. Let me check my PL1 and PL2. So what I do is I open up a tab here, and we go to Google. And let me open up my window capture. And I type in right here, what is, if I could type PL1 and PL2 on an Ultra, it's an Ultra 7, but we can just say 265K, because AMD, there's no other chip that's going to confuse it. And it tells us very quickly the power limit, the idle power limit is 125 watts, and the PL2, or your short-term high power limit, is 250. Now that's coming right from Intel. These are the Intel engineers. This is how it's designed to run. So I go back over to this computer, and then when I bring up the HWI info that I use to monitor the temps, it's telling me what PL1 and PL2 are set to. And they're both set to 250. They're basically the same, static. What's the point? You lose all your power efficiency. So I look in the BIOS, and there's 3 settings. There's Intel Baseline, ASRock Performance, and Intel Default. What's the difference between an Intel Baseline and an Intel Default? Well, apparently the Intel Default is 250 and 250. Not according to Intel, it isn't. The ASUS Extreme, I'm not even, like, I can't even get the Intel defaults to run. Why would I do that, right? So I go, okay, must be the Intel Baseline. So Intel Baseline sets it at 125 on the PL1 and 177 on the PL2. A good half of what it should be. So when I run the benchmark again, it's now running no hotter than 75 degrees and very slowly. All right, so we either run it too much voltage and it gets too hot, or we run too little voltage and I lose all my performance. So I'm looking through the BIOS, like I just went back a year in time, to manually set the PL1 setting and the PL2 setting to the Intel defaults that ASRock should be following, that ASRock should have a motherboard update, BIOS update, much more frequently on this particular chip, because if it's a new chip, Intel's releasing new information. Everybody else is doing it. ASRock isn't. I sent a strongly worded letter last night. It was a tough day. You know, on top of everything else, this is what I did right up until the time I went to bed, because I was going to solve what was going on here. So I set PL1 to 125, PL2 to 250 by hand. Then I run the same Cinebench R23, and wouldn't you know, this thing is super fast. It got to be about 85, 86 degrees Celsius peak. And it flies and it runs exactly like it's supposed to run. And, you know, I'm not going to repeat that whole thing of buying all these other coolers and uninstalling and reinstalling and wiring up just to have the same problem, because a motherboard manufacturer is so disrespectful or inept that they can't follow. How long did it take me to look up the PL1 and PL2 settings? Their engineers can't do that. They think Intel baseline and Intel default are two different things, and they set them two different ways, and neither of those two ways represents Intel's recommended settings. And now I can't have a CPU that runs at its rate of performance without overheating on a big cooler that should be more than adequate to cool it. Or I can run it at a significant performance decrease, and then the cooler runs fine. Those are my two options based on what ASRock set in their BIOS. Thankfully, for me, I am a bit more technical, and I know what PL1 and PL2 are, I know what they do, and I know where to go in the BIOS to locate and change them. How many computer owners do you think know how to do that? Even computer owners that know enough to build their own computer. That's pretty technical stuff. And why should they have to get technical to put something back to default? So I am livid with ASRock right now. I've already been through this with ASRock on the 13th and 14th gen. Did we not learn our lesson? Apparently, all ASRock took from that is they can't go above 250 watts anymore. They can't set it to infinity and cook the processor. You can't do that on 15th gen. But you can still not obey the Intel defaults, not set them or give the option to even set that in the BIOS, and then default it to something that would be extraordinarily difficult for the end user to try and figure out on their own when their CPU is overheating. Unless they go in there and, you know, set the Intel baseline and then get less performance out of the chip. And of course, then it solves the heat problem, but now you didn't get everything you paid for. So that was fun. So I got that all done last night, and I put the low glass panel back on it. That's all figured out. And we'll fire it up, and I took screenshots so you can see the results of Crystal Dismark. You can see the results of Cinebench before and after I made those changes. And I can even go in there and show you. I can show you live exactly when we set Intel default or Intel baseline, how ASRock is setting the wrong values, and where you have to dig down deep into the very technical side of the BIOS to find PL1 and PL2 and adjust them yourself. That's just disgusting. You should have to dive down deep if you're somebody who has that knowledge and you're looking to set something beyond the recommended defaults. You should not put that on the customer to put things back to a recommended default. So you could say, well, we didn't know. Yeah, you didn't know on the 13th and 14th gen. And y'all learned. MSI learned, ASRock learned, ASUS learned, Gigabyte learned. As far as I know, none of them have done it again. Until now. Now it's like, we didn't learn anything. We don't understand what Intel defaults are. And we're going to torture the heck out of our customers. That's the only conclusion I can come to. Like, why else would you do it? If it wasn't intentional, willful, they did that with knowledge. They knew what they were doing this time. We've already been through this. Why would they continue to go down that road? It only is going to end up in more support requests and more returns. They're creating the same problem they've already created, that they've already learned. They've already been chastised by Intel for this. And now they're still doing it. And the fact that Intel has released updates that are not in this BIOS, because this BIOS is over 2 months old. I really like the motherboard. I love the I/O. I love the way it looks. I just love everything about it. But I'm starting to lose the appeal that I've had with ASRock for such great value on their boards. You know, companies change, management changes, and what was a company that was great can become a company that's terrible because of the people in charge. I think somebody in charge has changed. and they don't know what's going on. As a result, ASRock has now taken 2 or 3 steps backwards, where Gigabyte, MSI, and Asus have not. So I might think twice before I buy another ASRock motherboard, no matter how much I like them and the value that they get. What you have to understand is if I sell this to a customer and they ever have to reset the BIOS battery goes bad, they get a BIOS update that resets, I'm going to get a support call years after the sale going, I don't know what happened. I just updated the BIOS. The thing overheats now. Then I have to remember, oh, that's the motherboard that you have to go into these settings. Well, how do I do that? I don't know. I can't remember what the BIOS looks like. I have to see it. Well, what if the computer's in another state? I can't see it. There's no way for me to, you could maybe put your phone camera up on a FaceTime call and show me, and we can look at it together. Wouldn't it be just easier if I could just set the BIOS default, save and exit? This would not be a future support call. So that's got me pretty worked up. Given how recent the 13th and 14th gen fiasco was, I can't believe ASRock went back to this ignorance. It's so unforgivable at this point. It's almost malicious. It's almost like they're doing it intentionally to give the customer a middle finger. Like they want you to have problems. They like it. There's no other reason I can think of they would purposefully ignore the Intel PL1 and PL2 unless they're that dumb. And I gotta believe they're smarter than that. So there's a big disconnect between Intel's instructions to them and what they're doing. And they're also ignoring the past. And I'm sure they're still dealing with issues of people that have never updated their BIOS because they didn't know on their 13th and 14th gen, where they continue to burn up processors, and they'll continue, and Intel will continue with these expensive warranties and pissed off customers. And then they want to continue that on the next generation. I would love to understand, what were you thinking? Justify this to me. Explain why you think Intel defaults don't apply to you or your customers, and why it's okay to get all of these support calls and cause all of this frustration to the people who buy your products, when if those people bought your competitors' products, they would not be dealing with this. Go ahead, justify it to me. And if your justification is reasonable, you'll keep my business. Otherwise, I think me and ASRock are done. I am so done with this now. In all fairness, it affected ASRock, Asus, Gigabyte, and MSI simultaneously. But the other 3 learned from it. These folks, why didn't they learn from it? Why are they following different PL1 than PL2 than Intel's recommending to the public? Are they going to say Intel recommended something different for us? Why? And at what point does my CPU overheating and the cost of an expensive cooler to cool it become a lawsuit to them? That I wouldn't need all of that excessive cooling if I would have just bought a different competitor's board, put the exact same components on it, and never had this issue, versus having a technical mindset to understand why the issue's happening and go in and make those technical changes deep within the bowels of the BIOS that most people, you know, it might as well be written in another language. They have no idea what any of this stuff means. So what would you do if you were me? I do like the board. I like all the I/O. It's everything about the board I like, but apparently the people who designed it, or at least the management. Oh my gosh. So, yeah. Let me go back through the chat here and see what you guys are saying. Jamie McGregor renews membership, now a member for 30 months. Right on, Jamie. Thank you for that. Wilhelm Gordon says hello in the chat. Welcome in, Wilhelm. Bajan guy saying hello. Yeah, so I'm hoping for a better week this week. Now that this is all sorted, at least until I forget and it gets a BIOS update and I can't figure out why it's overheating again. That's the other thing. You know, if you only have one computer, it's pretty easy, right? You get to know it. But I don't get to know any of these computers for the most part. I see them and then I move on to the next one, and I see that one and I move on to the next one. I'm back to being that bartender again. I'm serving the drinks. Someone says, "Give me what I had last time." I don't know what you had last time. You have to tell me. Yeah. So I will never remember this. I'll tell you right now. I will have to re-diagnose this every time until ASRock updates the BIOS with the proper PL1 and PL2 settings. I did fire off a very strongly worded email to their support. And, they might not even respond to it. They might think it's too rude. But I was typing certain things in all caps because I was very, very upset. And we'll see what kind of answer I get. If I get any at all, I'll let you know. Unbelievable. Ray says his backup was made by Acronis. I originally asked the question to the chat, and then it went sideways. I gotcha. All right, that's fair. So with Acronis, the first thing that I would do, Ray, is reinstall Acronis on the new machine. Put Acronis on there. Once Acronis is installed, connect your backup drive and look for your backup file and just double click on it with the mouse. And you can drag and drop the individual files and folders you want wherever you want to put them. So if you have My Documents, for example, you can drag My Documents back into your new My Documents, or Favorites, you can drag back into your Favorites. And you don't have to run the Acronis software, but Acronis does need to be installed to expand out those backup data files. It's just like a zip file. You double click it and you can see everything in there. And you can drag and drop what you want out. It's that easy. And thankfully, I know how to answer your question, because if you'd use, say, some other backup software I'm not familiar with, I'd have to throw it over to the chat and hope somebody there knows. But yeah, we've always reassured people too, don't worry about how to do your restore. Just make your backup. If you ever need help with your restore, we're always here. That's what I say overall. As long as you've got a backup, even if we don't know the answer to how to restore it with a particular different piece of backup software, we can find that out. What we can't do is we can't go and recover lost data, but we can always recover from backups. So yeah, that's real easy to do. And I think if you just simply reinstall Acronis on the new machine, plug your backup drive in and just explore that backup drive for your backup files, double click on a backup file you want, you'll see all the contents inside. And if you still need help, let us know and we'll go from there. So overall, once we have all that information, pretty easy question to answer, but we'll see if that's enough to get you going or if there's still another stumbling point. And, again, if there is, absolutely ask away. That's what we're here for. My Lapin Silvaraj says hello to everybody. Welcome in. Welcome in. William Denton said, I'm sitting with a new ASUS motherboard and I'm set at 250 and 250 and it's been running hot. I just replaced the Noctua D9L with a D12L, which is why I'm watching you with HW info on. What motherboard and what CPU? Is this an Intel Ultra? And you're telling me ASUS is doing this too? Zach Bischoff renews membership, now a member for 29 months. Says, hello, Carey. Hope all's well. Haven't tuned in lately. Work's been crazy. Glad to be back. Well, we're glad to see you again. Good to see you, Zach. Thanks for saying hello, renewing the membership. Glad to have you here. William Denton says it's a new 265K build. Well, the plot thickens, doesn't it? So you're telling me ASUS is doing the same thing. Which motherboard is it? Which ASUS motherboard is it? David Graham says it seems like ASRock's having motherboard trouble again. It's not being nice to AMD or Intel, and they just admitted they messed up finally. Did they? Did they admit it? Do you have a link? Could I read it, please? I'd like to see what they're saying. William Denton said it's an Asus Z890i. All right, well, let me fire this up and I'll show you what the options are and how they're wrong and what to look for on your Asus board, because I'm not sure where it is in the BIOS, but it's in there to find your PL1 and PL2. And let me get this hooked up. How are we going to do this? I guess we'll just do it the regular way. Keyboard, mouse, HDMI. I was working on it last night with the Nano KVM, so I was working from the laptop upstairs. Thankfully, I didn't have to just stand here for an hour and a half. I mean, this took about 2 or 3 hours last night. Obviously, I did have to come downstairs to hook the USB cable up, and then, of course, correct the orientation of the display. But everything else, getting in the BIOS, all that stuff, I was able to do upstairs. So there I'm sitting at a desk, and here I'm standing. And anyway, I really like the Nano KVM. It's really come in very handy for me. Let's see, I need an HDMI cable. I think that's the last thing I need. All right, we're going to turn this on. We're going to turn this on. There we go. And then you'll see the display now. I didn't physically move the display. That's in the software, the NZXT CAM software. You can adjust where the way the monitor is situated. And when this boots, I'll tell, because you'll be able to tell. It should get to my spinning logo if it all works right. The system is dead silent too. When it does get hot, you do hear the fans, but that's what it's supposed to do. I'm a bit surprised my logo hasn't loaded. I thought I set that up last night, but again, I was upstairs. When I went to shut it off, I came down and looked at it. It looked right. I shut it off, and then I went to bed. So there it goes. There it is. It just took a minute for that to load. All right, so that kind of puts it back to, if you remember back in the day at Studio B a few years ago, with just a lot less RGB on this one. So let's go over to this desktop right now. We'll go over to my HDMI 3 here. Perfect. Full screen. Right click. Full screen. Where is my full screen? I have a new version of OBS that just came in today, and it looks like they've changed some things. How can I show transition, blending mode, open source projector? Wow, they moved it around. Okay, so let me get rid of the NZXT cam. We'll just minimize that. What I want to show you first and foremost, when I ran Crystal Disk Mark, no issues with our Gen 5. That's the T-Force made by Team Group. And that's a Gen 5 2 terabyte NVMe drive. That does, it can do up to 12,400 megabytes per second. You'll see we got pretty close at 12,381. And the write's a little bit slower at 11,820, but that's about 3 times faster than Gen 3, just for a comparison. Not that it really is going to matter on a system like this. When I ran Cinebench initially, within the first, I don't know, minute, we are already exceeding very, very high temperatures, as you can see in the red right through here. Right? You see how quickly, well, I don't know if you can see how quickly, because I already stopped the test. Look how cool, it was running in the 40s, and then it jumps all the way up to 104. So it wouldn't have been in the 40s if the cooler wasn't working. So we know the cooler was doing a great job. And it even had been so low as to be in the low 30s. All of a sudden, it jumps up 3 times hotter. What changed? Well, that's when it takes a little bit deeper of a look into our PL1 and PL2 settings, because my initial thought was something's wrong with the cooler. And that's what my initial thought was back on the issues similar to this with 13th and 14th gen. But once the PL1 and PL2 settings were manually corrected by me by hand, then my maximum temperature was what, 88? So it dropped by a full 20 degrees simply by making one change in the BIOS and not doing anything with the cooler. And you can see our final scoring right over here on Cinebench, which is very, very respectable. Look, we're right up here at the top. So what I want to show you is if I run hardware info right now, you can download hardware info for free. I always download the zip portable version. And I run HWinfo 64. And I just want to do sensors only. So sensors only, and hit start. I can close that out. And when this starts, oh yeah, there's a new version, whatever. We scroll down here, and what we're looking for are our PL1 and PL2 settings, which are going to be, you're just going to look for the W's. And PL1, power limit 1 and power limit 2. Now, what we're looking at with power limit 1 and power limit 2 is, again, we've got current, manual, maximum, and average, just like we're looking at with the temps. And whatever we see across here should be the same across all three. 125, 125, and PL2, 250, 250, and 250. It's a free piece of software, and it can tell you right now what's going on. So if we go into our BIOS, let's restart this. It'll give it a second here, and it's going to give us a post screen. We'll start pressing and tapping the delete key numerous times. Right about now. So F2 or delete, and I wasn't quick enough. Sometimes you got to start pressing it before you see the screen. You can press it too late. I don't know that you can press it too soon. So we'll wait for that to boot up one more time. There's the NZXT app loading, the CAM software. And then when we go under lighting, we can see that, you know, we've set our logo there as a animated GIF file. All right, let's do this again. Shut down and restart. And as soon as I see that Elgato, that, you know, it's right now, I can start tapping on delete over and over again. Like I said, normally you can't do it too soon. And this time it'll probably work. I just continually just keep press and release the delete button until something happens here. Okay, now I'm stopping. Does it work? Yes, now we got in. Now, when we go at the main screen, there's nothing about PL1, PL2, or voltage in general. A lot of times just your fan settings on some motherboards are setting that. Now remember, I just have this set up with a standard fan. There's also performance and full speed. Sometimes there's even all-in-one, etc. You can see that CPU fan 1 is not even connected because we have an all-in-one pump, and that's why you're seeing all-in-one pump here. And if I go to advanced mode, which here is F6, but on other makes like Asus and Gigabyte, I think it's F7, or you could just click the button. And we're going to go into our overclock tweaker. And if we look at CPU configuration, we're going to scroll down. Is it under here? Right here. Long duration. No, look, why can't they stick to PL1 and PL2 or long-term or short? Why do we have to keep throwing around 3 different terms to talk about the one term? So this is another thing, right? Why doesn't this simply say PL1 and this one say PL2? Why can't they even just put it in parentheses at the end of the sentence? You have to know what PL1 and PL2 are. They're the short-term and long-term power limits. And you can see the short-term, the one that's just there for turbo, is 250, and the regular long duration is 125. You can see the 125 right there and the 250 right there. But watch what happens. If we just go to advanced mode, which is, I think, what most people would do because it's more user-friendly. Under CPU configuration, we can identify somewhere in here. Am I in the right place? I may not be in the right place. Hold on. Every BIOS is different, and I only did this last night for the first time. So it's likely under what? Let me go back. Chipset. No, it's in here. Let's go back again. Oh, it's right in front of my face. Power delivery profile. So Intel baseline mode is what I have overridden. But what I want you to see is there's an Intel default mode and an Intel baseline mode. Would anybody like to tell me the difference between baseline and default? Because we'll talk about interchangeable words. How is that not meaning the same thing? But I guarantee you they don't mean the same thing. This is adding more consumer confusion. And ASRock Extreme mode, look, if I select ASRock Extreme mode, then I go back to, yeah, I guess it's under Overclock Tweaker. We go specifically to CPU config. Is that where I found it? And let's see what it changed our PL1 and PL2. It hasn't changed it yet. We're still at 125 and 250. So I guess I have to save this for those changes to take effect. So let's save changes and exit. And then when it reboots, again, I'm going to start pressing delete. I'm going to go back into the BIOS. I want to check what PL1 and PL2 have been changed to using the Intel Extreme profile. So that's usually what it's referring to, is it's changing those PL1 and PL2s for you. And it's all on the ASRock board. It's all under the Overclock Tweaker in advanced. Like, you got to really dig in here. So advanced, Overclock Tweaker, CPU configuration, and let's see what it says now. Now it's 250 and 250. All right, 250 and 250. So there goes your power efficiency. That means when you're just sitting at the desktop and you've walked away for a few hours, that's sucking down 250 watts. Why? Why? What good reason does that have? I don't get it. Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Let's go back to power delivery profile. Let's choose first of all the Intel default mode, which I believe is how it came out of the box. Save changes and exit. Let's go and see what PL1 and PL2 are now. So here's where things get a little bizarre. I expect the Intel default mode to give me 125 and 250 on PL1 and PL2, as Intel recommends, as we've already verified. I don't expect ASRock to play by their own rules. Oh, and look what I've done. I have, it's not accepted my delete key to get into the BIOS, so we're going to boot into Windows, I guess. That's fine. We can boot into Windows, and we can see PL1 and PL2 right now with hardware info, and we can see what they're set to. And you don't have to run Cinebench or anything. You can just go look at it here. It's going to read the settings. Sensors only is what I want. Close that. See, don't check for updates. Leave me alone. All right, let's scroll down here and look for PL1 and PL2. It's still set at 250 and 250. So it looks like the ASRock Extreme profile and the Intel default profile are exactly the same, like somebody screwed up. Now, there could be making some other changes besides that, I don't know, but that's one of the main ways that we're adjusting the profile, is just simply adjusting PL1 and PL2. But there could be some other adjustments in voltages there that I'm not paying attention to. So let's restart again. So 250 and 250 is too much. We're going to overheat almost immediately. In fact, let me just demonstrate. We'll do it right now. We'll bring up Cinebench, because this is going to happen quick. Right now, our cooler's fine. No problems. But the minute we start this test, and I bring up the temperature range, I want you to take a look at our temps and watch how fast these temps go up. In particular, watch our maximum temps here on the right side. And this will be done within about 30 seconds before we see red. And believe me, when I say I'm seeing red, I mean that both figuratively and literally. Our temps in just a few seconds have already doubled from what they were before we started this test, which is nothing to be worried about yet. And again, if we look at PL1 at 250 and PL2 is 250, well, PL1's here, PL2's below it. We're less than 60 seconds into this test. This started with a timer of 10 minutes. And this is going to all turn red, and we're going to be in an overheating situation. Because 250 is supposed to be the turbo. You're not supposed to have turbo on at all times. That ain't going to be good for your gas mileage. Look, we're already climbed to 92. It's getting there. It's already thermal throttling, see here? And that's going to continue to grow. All right, and we've only gone into this 90 seconds before that all started. It's going to get worse. So what I want to do for right now, I think I've made my point because I want to keep moving on this. Let's close this out. And let's go back in the BIOS. And let's see what that other Intel power profile does. So I'll start, not yet. Now I start pressing delete. And hopefully that'll get me into the BIOS this time. Keep pressing delete over and over and over again. See if it gets me in there now. Very good. F6 to get me to advanced mode. Overclock tweaker. Power delivery profile. Let's go to Intel baseline. Save and exit. So when we bring up Intel baseline, that fixes the heat problem, but at a cost of reducing our CPU performance significantly. So in that case, I could have just bought an Ultra 5 instead of an Ultra 7 if I'm going to get Ultra 5 performance. You know what I mean? Like, come on. So let me go. Oh, my chat crashed here. All right. So let me bring this down and let's bring up hardware info and let's see where our PL1 and PL2 have been set by the BIOS this time. Now PL1 is set to 125 where it should be. Oh, PL2 is still saying, oh, is that saying 250? That is the correct setting. I wonder if that's because I manually overrode it. I wonder if it's remembering the settings I put in under that profile. I'd have to reset the BIOS because this was saying, instead of 250, it was saying 177. And what that means is, yes, it dropped our temperatures by 35 degrees Celsius, and it also dropped our CPU performance by a third as well. So, not worth it. I want both the CPU performance I'm supposed to be getting using the PL1 and PL2 settings that Intel recommends, so I don't have to go overkill on my cooler or a bunch of fans just to make the thing run. And what regular computer user, even a computer hobbyist, would know to do this? So you're going to need to look in your ASUS BIOS and identify where the PL1 and PL2 settings are. You'll find them, and you could even probably Google for that particular motherboard. But if we run Cinebench now, just to give you an example that it is set correctly, and we run it for the 2 minutes, the same time as we did before, we hit 92 degrees within 2 minutes, right? A little over 90 seconds, I think we let it run. and we come back over here and we're watching this now, watch what happens in the next 2 minutes by comparison without the degradation of performance and without the physical chip degradation of just constantly slamming it with turbo voltage, because that's going to take a hit over time on degrading the chip. You're going to wear it out. It's no different than, you know, revving your engine up in your car constantly and never letting it idle. You're going to wear that engine out sooner. So, you know, you got to pay the piper. You got to pick one. So we're looking for balance. And that's what PL1 and PL2 from Intel's default represent, as balance. We're not looking to get the most extreme efficiency with no performance, hence Toyota Prius. We're not looking for the most performance, throwing away all efficiency, like a Chevy Corvette. We want a balance of performance and efficiency, so a regular consumer car that has a turbo, and that turbo kicks in when needed. And then when it's not needed, it doesn't run anymore. Like, you know, when you're at slower speeds, you're not passing anybody, you know, your engine is not working as hard, then you don't need to consume all that gas and have that turbo spin up. And we're into this now over a minute. Look at the temperature difference over here on the right side here. Look at this. It's massively different. And that's what's called normal. That's what's the default. That's the way it's supposed to run. Why would ASRock or ASUS default away from that? Motherboard reviewers need to start pointing out that if this board is performing better in their review, let's take a look at their PL1 and PL2 settings, and let's put them back to where Intel said they're supposed to be, and let's see if their board rates so well on the review. This is the responsibility of the reviewers, and if the reviewers are too ignorant to go and look for that, then the reviewer is going to tell you this board is better because it performed better, so if it were me, I'd recommend this board. Doesn't work that way. All boards should perform the same given the same RAM and CPU and SSD and power supply. They should all run exactly the same. If one board is running faster than another one, you got some due diligence to explain that. And that's for you to know as a viewer. Anytime you watch a content creator saying, wow, I recommend this board because it's faster. Now, if they're recommending the board because it has more I/O, more ports, what have you, other reasons, that's fine. But if they're saying that this board with all the same parts runs faster, that is suspicious as heck. What black magic has that board got that all the other boards don't? And it's pretty obvious when you go looking, they're sending too much voltage to the chip. They're cheating. And you, the consumer, you're paying for it. And the content creator may not know enough to even go look at that. Some content creators do, some don't. How do you know? Well, now you know, right? Watch for that. Okay, so I mean, we're already well into this now, 3.5 minutes, and look at our temps. What a difference. It's running the way Intel intended it to run. And what do you know? It runs really, really well. Who would have thunk? So I'm going to stop this first, then I can close it. Okay, that's the point I'm trying to make today. Let me close. Can I close that window? And let's get back over to camera 1. Okay, there I am. Are you finding this as shocking as I am? And now you're telling me ASUS is doing this too? So this isn't over yet. We still have to, I feel a moral duty to warn everybody in the community that if you're going to build a modern Intel board, you want to make sure you check those PL1 and PL2 settings in order to keep your system running nice and cool. So here's the thing. If I never ran Cinebench on this, and I left it the way it came out of the box, the way the motherboard was pre-configured, the BIOS was pre-configured, it was running nice and cool. It wasn't until I pressed it to actually do some hard work that the overheat began. So if you never press your computer hard, you likely will, this is a non-issue for you. But if you think, hey, I'd like to press my computer hard at some point in the future and not have to deal with this, well, you can nip it in the bud while you're building, or if you're just now made aware of it, If you have an Intel 13th or 14th gen or 15th gen CPU, whether it's Gigabyte, ASRock, ASUS, or MSI, check your PL1 and PL2 settings. And if the BIOS is too confusing for you, just run hardware info and read what it's reporting. Then Google the CPU you have, just as I demonstrated. I have a 265K. What are the PL1 and PL2 settings on a 265K? Google will tell you. Does that match what HWI or hardware info says? You're good to go, no worries. On the other hand, if your settings are 250 on PL1 and PL2, you still may have nothing to worry about unless you push that CPU hard, and you push it hard for a couple minutes. In my case, about 2 minutes, it gets over 100 and it registered 104, which is, it's going to cause a premature degradation of the silicon on the chip if it endures that kind of high temp over a sustained period of time. Once in a while is fine, you're not going to kill it. But if that's like the new normal, yeah, I hope you're planning on replacing that CPU within the next 2 years, because it may not even last that long. Or you can spend a lot of money on an over-the-top cooling system to deal with that. It's nothing you can't just throw money at, but you shouldn't have to. Believe me, I was doubting myself that I somehow put that cooler on wrong, or that adapter kit wasn't sitting properly, but that didn't explain those 30-degree idle temps. If you take that cooler off of there and idle it, that CPU is going to get 60, 70, 80 degrees without a cooler on it, just idling. So I knew the cooler was doing its job. And I thought, there's no way we're having the same problem. There's no way. We are. So I'm glad I checked. Glad I doubted myself in having faith in the manufacturers. All right, let's see. Topper says they've got an i9 13900KF and their PL1 is at 153 and their PL2 is 253. So is that the recommended defaults, or that's where yours is set? Now, by the way, you can adjust those to suit your cooler. I don't have to choose 125 and 250. You saw how cool I was just running on Cinebench. I could go to, say, 175 and 250, maybe 255, maybe. And you can experiment around to find what's right for you. That's like overclocking. Like, I don't want to waste my time dealing with that nonsense. Just set it to the Intel defaults and be done with it. Intel defaults and motherboard defaults should be agreeing to what default means, the default. But they can't agree. And I don't give a rat's behind what ASRock or ASUS thinks. They don't make the chip, Intel does. And at the same time, I don't want to listen to Intel tell me about, you know, something non-Intel related on a motherboard they don't make. I want to listen to the manufacturer of the specific product. So if Intel makes the network card, I don't necessarily want the driver from the motherboard manufacturer. I want the driver from Intel, the company that makes the network card. See what I'm getting at? The manufacturer who makes each individual product, that's their specialty. That's what they know. And the motherboard manufacturer that takes all these other manufacturers and puts them all together on one mother of a board is supposed to be following the guidance of those manufacturers. And they might claim that they are. But then that would suggest that Intel's telling ASRock one thing and telling consumers another thing. Why would they do that? I know why ASRock would do it. ASRock will do it so their board appears to perform better to ignorant content creators who think that's a better board because it outperforms another manufacturer's board that's not setting the PL1 correctly. In this case, ASRock is doing this with intention. And if it weren't for YouTube, they probably wouldn't be doing it. Anything that will convince you to buy their product, no matter how sneaky they have to get. Intel doesn't have to be sneaky. The information's there. So Intel doesn't have any motivation to help ASRock sell motherboards, right? Any more than ASUS or Gigabyte or MSI. Of course, they want them to sell boards, but they're not going to have a favorite. They're just going to say, here's the information. So they wouldn't just tell them, hey, you should not obey our defaults, or we're going to set our defaults different for you so we'll help you sell more motherboards, just so we can burn up more chips and have us pay for all the warranty.
See, it doesn't make any other sense other than they're trying to deceive the public, including the content creators that are influencing the public. So can we blame the content creators? At the end of the day, your decisions are yours alone, and it's why it's important that you do your own research in order to determine if the information you're being provided is accurate or if someone's challenging it. And then you have to determine how deep down that rabbit hole you want to go to understand which side is right and which side is wrong. Or take a risk, see what happens for you, or just avoid it altogether and go, that's too much involved, don't want to be involved in that. I thought I was just going to buy something and get on with life, but if I got to do all this work, never mind. And that's an option too, and it's for each of us to decide on our own. But you know, the information, and I keep repeating that you're not being told, there's omitted information. The United States government will pass hundreds, if not thousands, of new bills into law across local, state government and federal government. And the news cherry picks out the ones they think are the most controversial. And they'll say, oh, this new law was signed in today. Well, so were a bunch of others, but they didn't tell you about those. I want you to be aware that it doesn't degrade the quality of the information you're getting, but that the quantity of information you're getting, it's like you're skimming off the top at what they think are the juiciest bits and leaving the bulk of it unspoken. And so if you don't know, if you don't ask, where's the rest, you'll never know there's more, right? Here's some information. Okay, but where's the rest of the information? There's got to be more to it than that. And so when you're watching the news, or somebody's making a video on something and they just love something, okay, I understand that's the part you love. Now tell me something you don't like about it. And if they can't tell you anything they don't like about it, sounds like there's an omission happening. I can find something I don't like about anything. Maybe that's just my own unique talent. But if somebody's, cursing out the president, it doesn't matter which president it is. This has been going on my whole life. And all I have is criticism. I say, has this president done anything that you like? This is a very important question. Of all the things a president does, and all you're doing is criticizing. All I hear, has that president done anything you approve of? And if they say no, I don't want to talk to them anymore. There's no way one person does everything bad and against everything you believe and has never done one thing you like. You're just choosing to see it that way, and you're welcome to do that, and I'm tuning you out because you are no longer unbiased. You have a built-in bias, you're leaning a certain way, and you will not see it open-mindedly and say, well, actually, this person did this and did this, and I appreciate that. Okay, now I'll listen to your criticism with sincerity. Otherwise, if it's just a blind attack and you're protecting your perspective rather than actually being able to see the entire thing, then you're the one that's omitting information. And if anybody intentionally omits information to meet their particular agenda, I want no part of the conversation, because for me, it's half a conversation. And if you're not willing to have the other half, then there's no point in having it at all. And so that's how I shut that down. And there's got to be both good and bad. If there's a product I don't like, there's probably things I like about it. But just overall, there's more I don't like about it than I do. And the same is true with everything in life. The worst car I've ever owned, there were things I liked about it. Heck, there's a reason why I bought it. But overall, and through the course of ownership, I started just seeing the bad. And the more the bad, I started looking for it. There's another thing. And even the smallest little thing was now much bigger in my mind because I was already predisposed, looking for it, expecting it. And there, I knew it. So be aware if you're doing that you're not necessarily being fair to other people and you're not being fair to yourself. Because what you're doing is you're putting blinders on, and you're saying, if I don't look at it, it doesn't exist. And if we don't talk about it, that it doesn't exist. We're just going to look at what I want to look at. Okay, what about what I want to look at? What about what they want to look at? No, they don't matter. Only I matter. Okay. Now that we understand that, we can choose how long we want to engage, if at all, in a conversation with somebody that it's their way or the highway. If they have authority or power, you might need to listen to them. But if they're just an average schmo like the rest of us, who cares? You're welcome to believe whatever you want. I feel like sometimes I walk into a church and they're trying to preach to me. You're going to be knocking on my door, asking me if I believe in the Lord Jesus? Is that what you're doing next? You're welcome to it. Don't let me get in your way. Don't come knocking on my door. I'm not stopping you. I'm not telling you what you can or can't believe. Please show me the same respect in return. We'll all get along great. All right. That's what's happening with product reviews. I'm seeing certain content creators that are making reviews that are commercials. They're lying to their audience. They're being paid by the manufacturers to talk about the product, and they never have anything critical to say. And that is a big red flag. If you see a content creator that's just making video after video about how good this is and how good that is, then they're not being balanced and fair to you. They're being paid. And their goal is to sell you a product. That's no different than watching QVC. You ever see the shopping network on TV tell you about a product that's bad? That's what it is. It's just the new version of at-home shopping. Be aware of it. A true review will always have critical things or suggestions for improvement. They're still allowed to like a product, but if they can constantly, over and over, keep one video after the other, this is great, this is great, this is great, you're watching commercials. I don't mind that you do, but they're not reviews. And I hope one day the FCC will crack down on this, but given that YouTube videos are made all over the world, United States law does not apply outside of the United States, except maybe with some allies. You're never going to be able to contain that. So it's up to you as a viewer to understand what's the agenda behind the content creator. Are they truly an enthusiast, or are they just a mouthpiece as a puppet for a corporation designed to deceive you into thinking that they're unbiased and they genuinely like a product? Because if they're honest and they're critical of the product, there's a good chance the manufacturer will stop paying them. Then they won't have a job anymore. So what would you do if you were them? What choice do you have? And that's why I'm so lucky to have this community, because I don't have that fear of retaliation from a manufacturer or the attempted control. And when they do try to control, Geekom asked me if I would do a top 5 mini PCs of 2024, a year-end video, and they'd pay for it. I'm interested. And they said that'd be great. You can choose any 5 mini PCs you want. You must publish it by this date, and we'll pay you this amount of money. Would you be interested? Yes, I'm still interested. Then the third email said, once again, we're agreeing that you're going to do this video about top 5 mini PCs of your choice by this date, during the shopping season for the holidays, for this amount of money. So long, this is new information on the third email, so long as you assure us Geekom will be the #1 choice, you can choose any mini PCs you want. They all don't have to be Geekom. And it doesn't matter which Geekom you pick, but it must be in the #1 position. We're done. And Geekom said, no problem, we respect your integrity, and we will get back with you after the first of the year and continue the reviews as normal. And I've never heard from them since. I wonder if those two things might be related. As a viewer, how much does it disturb you that I could have taken that deal and I could have said, these are the top 5 mini PCs. Here's Ace Magic and Minis Forum, and here's Paladin, and here's Geekom, and here's what I like about this one, and here's what I like about that one. And by the way, the ultimate best one, #1 of the year, Geekom. Then you found out Carey got paid by Geekom and had to make sure Geekom was #1. Would I have picked #1 as Geekom, or was I only doing that to get the check? Can you trust anything I say after that ever again? How do you not feel lied to? There was critical omission of information that, under full transparency, I would have said, this is a sponsored video brought to you by Geekom. What I said to Geekom in response was, how about we do a top 5 Geekom mini PCs? Then I can be honest. I'll pick the 5 mini PCs, or they can send me 5 mini PCs that they make that have been released throughout 2024, and I will put them in order from 1 to 5, and you'll pay me and everything's no, we won't do that. Well, we don't have a deal. Because at least if they were all Geekom, I wouldn't have any bias, and it wouldn't matter if I was getting paid. Who cares? But if I'm comparing competitors, and I'm going to throw competitors under the bus who are playing by the rules, and Geekom sending a private email, what content creator would expose this to their audience and jeopardize that income? Does this shock you? Geekom has been a great partner with us right up until we got that email. And the email was deceiving. It was, would you make this top 5? Yeah, and we'll pay you for it. Great. And would you do it by this date? We will. Great. And you're going to make sure Geekom is in the #1 position? No. Oh, maybe you should have started your first email off with that. Even the way they presented the information was deceiving to me. So they're not just throwing you under the bus, they're throwing me under the bus. They're getting me involved, like they're dangling money in front of me going, doesn't this sound good? Yeah, it does. All right, just one thing though. What a waste of my time. Go back and forth in 4 or 5 emails negotiating this deal, and they just present new information out of the blue. How would you feel? That doesn't mean I don't like Geekom products. I like ASRock products too. I have a problem with the people making those decisions, that they would even offer such an underhanded thing. They knew what they were doing, and that's why they said, we appreciate your integrity. So they already knew they were questioning my integrity when they asked, and they did it anyway. They knew what they were doing was unethical, and they did it anyway to see if I'd go along with it. And then when I didn't go along with it, I haven't heard from them since. I didn't ask them. They asked me. I was polite. They were polite in return, and then they ghosted me. That's why I need members. This is why I need viewer support and contributions. If we want to be independent and you don't want to continue to be deceived, what choice do I have but to be honest? Because if I'm caught in some kind of a scandal, I'll better find a new career. But what motivation would I have to do that, especially if I enjoy being unbiased and speaking my mind and know that there aren't going to be repercussions or retaliation? Why wouldn't I want to keep doing that? Why would I jeopardize that? But on the other hand, if I'm getting paid $10,000 from a company to make a single video, and if they like it, they'll probably pay me 10 grand to do it again and again and again and again, and I don't say that to you, you're going to have to figure it out. Gee, Carey's been making an awful lot of videos about, XYZ, and has nothing critical to ever say. I wonder how many other YouTube channels are doing that who aren't as honest to their viewers. Makes me wonder. Taffer says, I would not have known about PL1 and PL2 if not for this channel. Well, I'm certainly not the one who, found it. I probably first learned about it from Jay's 2 cents, where he pointed it out. And that's all I needed to know. Once I got that information, then I could go on my own and do it my way and run my own testing. So I don't agree with everything Jay's 2 cents summarized, but that's the piece I was missing that was solving the frustration I was having, trying to find a cooler that would keep a 13th or 14th gen Intel processor cool. It was driving me crazy, and I spent a lot of money. We bought all those boards. We bought a Gigabyte board, an Asus board, an MSI board, and an ASRock motherboard specifically for testing what's going on. Plus, I bought CPUs for all of them, and then I must have bought $1,000 worth of coolers, and then I spent hours and hours and hours in research. Come to find out, this is all it was. And I didn't need to buy all those motherboards. But I wanted to demonstrate, here's how you do it on MSI, and here's how you do it on Asus, here's how you do it on ASRock, and here's how you do it on Gigabyte. But then new BIOSes come out, different makes and different models of motherboards come out. And when the different model of board comes out, like maybe it has Wi-Fi, maybe it doesn't, the BIOS is a little different. So people cannot follow step by step. They have to know what to look for and to search for it. It could be phrased PL1, just like TPM could be phrased on a Gigabyte board as PTT. Why is TPM and PTT the same thing? I don't know. Well, can't we all agree? There's only 4 motherboard makers. How hard is it to get them in a room? And let's call this TPM or let's call it PTT. No, we're calling it this. The rest of you were wrong. And you, as the consumer, you're stuck with the end result. So all we can do is let you know, look, we got different phrasings for all these same things. So we're going to look for PL1 and PL2 in the BIOS. It's likely under the advanced CPU section somewhere, in this case, overclock tweaker, which some BIOSes don't have a section called overclock tweaker. Depends who makes it, depends which model it is. So it's not like I can just say, click here and do that. But I can tell you, go to HWI. At least that way, that's everything we can all do that easily. You can download that file for free. We can run it. You don't have to install anything, and you can at least see where your PL1 and PL2 are without having to go in the BIOS. Because you might find that they're fine, and there's nothing you need to worry about. You don't have to take that any further. But then the fact that this BIOS is over 2 months old on a brand new motherboard really upsets me. That's a whole nother issue. If the board were 2 years old, and there hasn't been a BIOS in 10 months, I get it. But on a board that just came out, knowing Intel has released updates to the manufacturers, there should be a newer BIOS than this. For all I know, maybe they're releasing one as I speak, but it's overdue as far as I'm concerned. And I'm hoping they'll fix the PL1 and PL2 settings. That's a brand new board. If I'd have bought a used motherboard and somebody overrode the PL1 and PL2, then it would be wrong for me to blame the manufacturer. That was not a return board. That's a brand new motherboard set incorrectly by the manufacturer. Malapin Silverge with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Malapin. Barry Klein said, I must be an old fart because every time Carey says PL1, I think of an IBM programming language. I never heard of PL1 RPG, but I've never heard of PL1. So you must be old. That's before my time. Andy says, integrity is one reason I'm here. I appreciate it. Barry Klein says, well, that was slimy of Geekom and Morton degrees. John Paul Bacon said, I agree with your decision. I don't want you to be anything you don't want to. Well, and I don't want to be, the stereotypical scammy used car salesman stereotype. It goes against the way I was raised. Be honest and be kind. Good things will come. Eddie Casanova said, is your spinning logo available for purchase? No, because we didn't make that. That was made by a viewer named Selden Bell, who created that for us and gave it to us. And if you want it, just ask. Send an email to us. Like, you should know the email address, but I'll put it up here in case you don't have it. and just ask for it, and we can make it available. It's a little tiny file. We're not going to charge you for it. We appreciate you being members. I don't know why you'd want it, but you can have it. Bill Stodd says, in the current trend to copyright infringement, it would seem that everyone would try to avoid problems, hence different manufacturers use different naming schemes for the same setting. That's possible, but that's what standards committees are for, right? That's why we have standards. And if there is no standard for calling TPM, you know, TPM should be not owned by anybody. In my opinion, I don't think it is, but you know, AMD has it, Intel has it. You know, just like AMD has AMD has Expo for memory overclocking, and Intel has XMP, extreme memory profile. That I understand. You know, two different companies competing against each other, they're not going to share that proprietary technology because there's no standard on how to do that other than what they define that's beneficial to their chip design. What's up, Mara?
Hi, I just wanted to say, as a side note, besides that spinning logo, I also created a bunch of other spinning logos. If it's interesting, I'm happy to create it for you.
She'll even make a logo for you.
I can do that too.
Yeah, I don't know.
That was done a while ago.
That was Selden who did that, Selden Bell.
Yeah, and that was like a couple years ago.
And then we replaced it with one that you designed, but I couldn't find it.
Oh, I have. Why didn't you ask?
Because it was about 1:30 in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning when I was doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bother you for that. I was just, you know, I was watching an old video of this build.
Yeah.
And I saw the cube and I went, oh, I missed the cube. Because it does kind of look like it's floating in there. You wouldn't.
It's great, yeah.
The other logos are too small. Like that's big and bold and you can see it at a distance from the camera.
Right.
So even though I don't intend on keeping this on camera, that was my thing. I just said,
there's nothing wrong with it. I just wanted to put it out there that if anybody's looking for something like that, I can do that. Yeah. And I've done several, so.
She likes that stuff.
I do.
So yeah, reach out to our email, and Mara's the one who addresses all that, and she really likes doing that stuff. It's not a chore for her. So there you go. Looks like I'm missing a whole bunch of conversation here. Let's see. Bill says, I'm sleeping at 1:30 in the morning. Most people are sleeping at 1:30 in the morning. But also most people are up at 6 or 7 in the morning. I'm up till about, well, at least 3 a.m. And then if I get 8 hours of sleep, that means I'm waking up at 11 a.m. when people are having lunch. But you also have to remember I live in a desert. What that also means is when all businesses are closed, usually around 6 o'clock, I still have a full day of work to do where I'm not getting interrupted with phone calls and emails because everybody's gone home. If I have to go anywhere, the sun's gone down, and that means the 115-degree day is now going to be a nice chilly 97 degrees instead. It also means the freeways are not going to have much traffic. So for all of these reasons, I love being up later. I don't like being crowded. I don't like being claustrophobic. Let me go out when the sun is not beating down oppressively upon me, making it painful to be outside. Let me go out when there's not a crowd of people waiting in their cars to move 3 inches. Let me drive with freedom. I love the night. I am a night owl, and I was born that way. So I guess I've just created a lifestyle that accommodates my natural cycle. And, you know, I'm fortunate for that too. So I can go to a business client sometime after rush hour ends during the week, so I don't get in the traffic, I don't get in the heat, drive to their business long after it's closed, so I'm not interrupting their workflow. I'm also not getting interrupted for the work I have to do by employees asking me, oh, while you're here, or my home computer, is this something you've done? I can work focused on getting the job done without interrupting them, without them interrupting me, without having my phone or emails interrupt me. Sometimes emails come in late at night, but not many. So that's not a big deal. Nothing where it's like an emergency and I have to stop and take a call. That never happens. And then I lock the building up, you know, set the alarm, lock it up and go. And then the next morning, if there's any issues, I'll have an email waiting for me. So when I wake up, as you can imagine, the world started without me. And I have a little catching up to do for that window of time where they're at work and I'm still asleep. But then I'm catching up when they're asleep and I'm at work. And then we have the overlap, which is the afternoon and the evening, right? The early evening and afternoon. So that's why I said before the show, I had a call. And I thought it was something simple. And I had a few minutes and I, you know, thought I could do this now. Well, that turned into something more. And I said, look, you know, I have a show to do. As a result, I started late today. I did call them earlier when I first got up, but they had gone to lunch. So when they came back from lunch, they called me. And the timing was just bad all around. So it's not all wonderful. Sometimes it's a real pain that the client's like, geez, you know, why are you so hard to get a hold of? I'm super easy to get a hold of if you wait till 4 o'clock, right? Because if I'm doing a show from 1 to 3, sometimes 1 to 4, I'm usually available after 4. They're usually there till 5 or 6. And a lot of what they want me to do, I don't need them there. I might say, let me log in remotely and have you show me what you're trying to do. All right, now I understand the problem. I'll take care of it tonight. You go about finishing up your workday. Later tonight, I'll log in remotely, leave the computer on, and I will fix it so it does this thing you want it to do. And if there's still ongoing problems tomorrow, send me an email or leave me a voicemail. And once again, we'll do this again. I don't have to, they don't have to breathe down the back of my neck and watch me work. But sometimes I do need them to show me. And in order for me to understand, what is it what are we doing? You know, they can't explain it right. So then let me connect remotely while you're at work and while I'm available, let me at least see it. And if I can fix it real quick, let me do it. But if it's something that starts getting complicated, hold on. Let me do this where I can focus, because there's nothing worse than I'm really concentrating on the screen and the person on the phone starting to ask questions. Or what's worse, they start having a conversation with somebody else, but they're not telling me. So I think they're talking to me, but I'm trying to focus in on this. And I'm like, let me just do that and do that. Okay, now what were you saying? Wait, what? Oh, you're not talking to me. Okay, where was I? Oh yeah, I just did that. That's why I just prefer to just work at night. It's peaceful, it's cooler. And I can, there's a lot of focus and concentration on a lot of this stuff. And when I'm trying to do 2 things at once, like, I don't know, texting and driving, we as humans, we generally only do 1 thing at a time well. When we're trying to do multiple things at the same time, we tend to not do any of it as well, and it all takes longer and sometimes has to be redone. So for some people, you know, they might find that to be a bit rude. But on the other hand, if somebody's, you know, operating on you, do you want the surgeon taking a phone call while he's in the middle of his hands in your guts? I wouldn't. I think the phone call can wait. Leave the guy alone. Let him focus on what he's doing. And then when he's done, you can have all the time you want. Where's my scalpel? Damn it. It's another one I left it in. Man, got to get these scalpels at Costco. Keep leaving them in the patients because I keep getting distracted. I don't think any of us want to be on the other side of that, do you? It's kind of the same thing, and it's not rude. It's just focus and respect. Let the guy focus. All right. Bortant said he's a night owl as well. I've talked to a few of you. A gentleman, Kevin, was a viewer, lives on the East Coast, which is a few hours ahead of us. And I said, oh, we should talk over the phone. And we did. And we talked till about, I think we started the conversation around 11 p.m. No, I think it was around 9:30 p.m. Arizona time. And I think it was 11:30 or 12:30. I said, this isn't too late for you? He goes, no. Is it too late for you? Well, I'm up till 3 in the morning. I don't mind talking. So we ended up talking until it was about it was after 2 a.m. his time. So I can't remember if he was 2 or 3 hours ahead, but we were on the phone about 90 minutes. I don't often talk to people that are awake and, you know, eager to talk at that. You know, a lot of times the batteries are worn down. They're like, oh, all right, no, I'm tired, I'm going to bed. But this guy kept up with me the whole time. I'm like, wow. And he's 2 hours ahead. So anyway, I know I'm not the only one, but I'm surprised how many other people I'm finding, especially related to computers that are also night owls. I wonder if there's a connection there. David Graham with a $2 super chat said, I posted the link about ASRock and AMD 6 times. Yeah, I haven't seen it. So let me scroll up here. So just so you know, David, above you is a message from Morton. Then there's a message from Barry. Then there's a message from John Paul Bacon, and then Morton and Mark Baggett and Bill Sony. I still don't see your message. I'm going to keep going. There's John Paul Bacon and Barry Klein and Peter Laycock and Phil Stott and Luke Greeny and Eddie Casanova. I'm still going. I haven't seen your message. I'm still going. Barry Klein and My Lappin and John Paul Bacon and Bill Sony and Morton. There's also another. You can follow along with me if you want to. Just start scrolling up above your message that you posted 6 times. I haven't seen one of them yet, but I'm going to keep going. There's Barry Klein and Andy W6AD. Morton.
I had to post the link. I had to post the link, and I also had to shorten it.
Why am I not seeing? There is nothing. I'm going to keep going. John Paul Bacon.
You're not going to see it.
Why not?
Posted it. I reposted it as you.
Okay, but where David said he posted it 6 times.
You're not going to see it. They can't.
Why would
links.
I not see it? They can post links. They're members. Since when?
What was that?
No, regular viewers can't post links. Members should be able to post links. They're trusted individuals.
I'll check into that, but prior to that, nobody could post a link.
Then wouldn't he get a message that his link wasn't posted if he tried to post a link and it's not allowed?
I don't remember when.
He's under the impression he's posted it 6 times.
Well, regardless, I reposted it and it's now there.
I'm going all the way to the top and it's not there. So
Carey, just scroll all the way down.
I want to know what he's seeing. Why isn't he seeing what I'm seeing? Barry Klein said you get no message. We might have a configuration here that we need to tweak in YouTube, because there's the link that Mara's posted under my name. Oh, and it's from MSN. All right. Thank you. Well, thank you for posting the link. I'm sorry that's so confusing. We must have something turned off, but we'll double check it. Window capture. ASRock acknowledges and explains, oh, the AMD 9000. Okay, so who posted this? Tech Yes City did. Among other descriptors, Intel CPUs mounting, ASRock has apparently told YouTube, TechTuber, Tech Yes City these 9000 series fatalities were called by precision boost overdrive being set too high. Well, the problems didn't just seem to be occurring with ASRock boards. The majority did. So it's relevant that ASRock is the company saying this. According to Tech Yes City, ASRock explains the problem is with the amperage that CPUs are being delivered by high-end ASRock boards. Well, the motherboard manufacturer says it's EDC, or electrical design current, and TDC, the thermal design current, settings were within the range outlined by AMD. It claims the resulting amperage was too high for the CPUs, and it so has to lower settings somewhat. Precision boost overdrive is a technology built into AMD processors that allows for dynamic adjustment of power voltage. It's the same as PL1 and PL2. The solution, ASRock tells us, is set the current power limits to lower levels to match motherboards from other manufacturers. That's an interesting admission. TechYes City had previously suggested Ryzen CPUs were dying due to voltage spikes. ASRock motherboard amperage was actually lower than competitors in their testing, but it was spiking higher. That turbo, yeah, that'll get you. Well, whether or not this is AMD's fault or ASRock's is hard to say. Never heard this before. On one hand, it's true that ASRock was operating within the limits AMD had set. It's hard to put the blame on the motherboard manufacturer. AMD has already said on the issue it believes its chips are not dying and in fact were no longer functioning due to memory incompatibility issues. On the other hand, if motherboard makers were already operating under lower limits that didn't cause these problems, it must make us wonder whether ASRock could and should have known to do the same from the start. That's called research. Whatever the case, ASRock's apparently rolling out a BIOS update. All right. Yeah. Well, that's a great article. Thank you for sharing it, David. Did you find a setting in there for allowing the members to post?
I'm still looking. No, you have the email.
Okay.
We've got 12 things going on at the same time.
Stressful running a YouTube channel. Let's see, where was I? Oh, I'm over here. Okay. Paul Connolly said it's a beautiful 6 degrees Celsius or 42.8 Fahrenheit. Winter has arrived. Winter in Australia. Seems like a great time to visit. David Graham says, I emailed it to you. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's the other thing you can do, by the way. Of course, I put the email address up. Mara gets those, but she will forward them on to me. So if it's something like during a live show and she comes down and says, hey, I've got email, then I know to check email. So that's another great way that you can reach out to us, especially if there's any restrictions in the chat room. And then we have to look here. I'm just curious if I can see the restriction, because it certainly wasn't intentionally set that way. Redirection, trailers. No age restriction. There's no comment moderation on. Although these aren't comments, this is live chat. Slow mode is not on. Participant mode is members only. It may be something we have to set up prior to going live. There are some options that are not available to me when I'm live. It's too late to set, like the latency settings. There's nothing I can do about it once I'm live. Then I have to actually shut the stream down and restart a whole new stream to change the latency settings. Maybe there's something in there. I'll have to look for it after the show. Just the fact that that's happening is surprising to me, because Morton says, can you see my link? No. I don't even see anything from you that shows you tried to post a link and were denied. Nothing.
You cannot enable it for members only. Want to be all or none.
Well, on members only videos, though, we can turn it on for all, because the only ones who are all are the members in the video, in the chat room.
I check if that's a global or not. As far as I know, you all in that.
That's pretty strange. We'll look into it. So, that's the first we've been doing this YouTube channel how long? That's the first I've been made aware that links aren't posting. All right, let me check the phone. Check the phone. William Denton with another Amazon gift card. He says, thanks, Carey. I can't believe how timely this discussion was today. I seriously just installed a brand new cooler and my CPU was still running a little high as I tuned in to watch. I had HW info on, looked over, and it said 250 and 250. PL1 was 250 and PL2 was 250, the same as yours. I have the same CPU, the 265K that you have, but I have a different motherboard, which helps the discussion. What are the odds? Here's a $100 Amazon gift card. Well, thank you, and I'm glad to know that the information I'm conveying to you is on point, right? That it's not just me. But why am I not seeing other content creators talking about this? I mean, I live and eat and breathe tech every single day, and I like to think my fingers on the pulse of, hey, what's new at Computex? What are the new cases coming out? What are the new coolers coming out? What are the new issues in the news? What's going on with Intel? What's going on with TSMC? Like, I like to stay on top of that all the time. So if other content creators have been talking about this, I need to start following those creators, because apparently the ones I follow haven't done anything about this. The last I heard was basically, you know, 13th and 14th gen Intel chips. The BIOS update fixes it, move on. But we're right back to square one again. Now, I have been following the AMD issue in its relation to ASRock and seen the burn chips, and you know, folks like DeBauer talked about it, and Gamers Nexus talked about it, with no definitive answers. So that article, you know, was very timely. First of all, it comes from a reputable news organization, and I don't know how recent that article is, but I'm hopeful that if ASRock is admitting this with AMD, in that frame of mind, they will be more open-minded to also accepting responsibility on these settings and what it's doing to their customers in regards to fighting heat issues. Now, if William Denton's board is ASUS, and ASUS is also following, that would imply that Intel's saying that's okay. We're not asking what Intel is saying is okay. We're asking what Intel says the default values are. So in other words, there should be, when you buy a brand new motherboard and a brand new chip, and you don't modify it, it should run at all default values when you turn it on, with no requirement for an end user to have to modify anything, unless that end user has technical knowledge that would go in and modify it regardless, because that's the way they are. So if they have that kind of knowledge, let them go in there and choose what's okay from Intel, but not what's the default. The default should always be the same for us all. And anybody who knows enough to know that you can raise that default up to a range that's okay will know how to do that themselves. But it doesn't work the other way around, where your default is everything's okay, and it's not the actual default in case things aren't okay. And that leaves a customer with a support call. They're pissed off. They're going to be returning product. It's going to cost your company millions of dollars. It's going to ruin your reputation. And you can't just say, well, Intel said it was okay. That doesn't make it okay. You're still going to handle the warranties. You're still going to handle the support. It's still your reputation. It doesn't matter what Intel says. Intel's not paying your bills. Intel's not suffering your reputation degradation, because you're going to use that as an excuse rather than take ownership and responsibility for the management decisions you're making just to point the finger at Intel. How do you stay in business? Intel's policies are for Intel's reputation. ASRock's policies are for ASRock's reputation. How can ASRock throw their reputation away and blame Intel for it? It's preposterous. It's just deflecting responsibility. Just own up to it. And you own up to it because you want to gain customer confidence that you will do what's right, not let other people tell you what's right. Give your customers what your customers want at a great price, and you won't have to do any advertising. But if you got to constantly apologize and make excuses, not a good business model. David Graham said Tech Yes City personally had his CPU burn up and he was pissed. Yeah, maybe I need to start subscribing to him or them. Lou Greenia says, it's my understanding that posting links is only available under moderator status. Yeah, you might be right. We'll have to come up with another process, I guess, for sharing links if that's the way it's going to be. Maybe a portal of some kind, or I don't know. We'll give us a project to work on and come up with a solution for that. Because I'm not turning everybody into moderators again. That was a mess. Got to be another way. Of course, emails always work too. Like you can always send me a link in email, and then Mara can let me know, and Mara can even share the link on your behalf. That might be a good workaround for now. But this is all news to me. I've never, in all the time we've been doing this YouTube channel, and all the time we've had memberships on, it has not occurred to me that members could not post links. I thought members had the same benefits as moderators without the control, right, to ban people. But I guess that's not true. David Graham said Gamers Nexus cornered ASRock at Computech. He has a video out, and they admitted it was their fault. Okay. Yeah, I don't see all of his videos, but at least they're giving a consistent answer, which is good to see. And I appreciate the sleuthing that Gamers Nexus does to dig down and expose these things. Barry Klein said, could I suggest skywriting as a way to share links that provides wider coverage than my original thought? Semaphore. Just gonna raise flags. I'll get one of those binoculars and the spotlights with the blinders on them, flash messages. We can look at each other across the sea. Peter Lecock saying goodnight. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us, Peter. Good to see you. Buster. Anybody else in the chat taking a look at their PL1 and PL2 during today's session? Just curious now that I've raised this issue. Bill Sony said, Carey, I've been watching Mike's unboxing reviews and how-to YouTube channel. He's got good stuff like printers. Yeah, sometimes he's got stuff that's only available in England that I want, and I can't get it. Or I can get it, but it's too expensive. I'll give you an example. Not that Mike's Unboxing has ever done this, but it's out of England, and it's something I want, but I'm not going to pay this much money for it. Let me show you. I'll share the screen in a second. Let me get it set up. This website's called myretrocomputer.com, and it's based out of England. Now, I'm an Atari guy. I'm not a Commodore guy, but this is a mini ITX computer case. And built into the case is a keyboard. And it mimics the size, the shape, and color of a Commodore 64. But you can put your own motherboard in it, and you can use an external power supply to power it. And there's ways that you can do that using what's called Pico power supplies. Or you could build it already built. You can buy it, rather, already built. And if I look at the prices on this, you were looking at around $300 just to buy an empty case. You'd have something unique, you know, you'd have something different. Let's see. Customer builds, no. Tutorials, no. New product, order now. That's what I want. And they're all out of stock over here.
So the block length is under community moderation. Is and I only two.
We have to just manually turn it on. And then when we're done with members
so
only.
I can disable it for right now.
Okay.
And put it back.
Yeah, that'd be
Okay,
fine.
do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or if you want, just disable it and let's see if it becomes a problem.
Well, we're moving forward only going to have members only outage chat.
Yeah, it solves itself. Yep.
Okay, I'll disable it right now.
Perfect. Well, I'm glad you found it because I didn't see it. And then it says it's in stock at miniitx.com. So let's go to miniitx.com. That's the site that sells it in England. And we'll look for, like, if you just want to buy the case, it's going to be under C64X is what it's called. So they can build it for you with certain, low-end to high-end components where you don't have to worry about it. Or you can build it yourself. And of course, it starts with an N100 and can go all the way to a Ryzen 9 7940. The Pico power supply is an interesting idea because what it enables you to do, maybe I can just Google it and show you one. Pico ATX. It's not a power supply. What it is it's taking a laptop adapter and converting it into a 24-pin motherboard adapter. That's all it is. So you would still plug this into your motherboard, and then it converts it so you can then power it externally with a laptop adapter. I was not aware, because when I saw the word Pico power supply, I thought it was an entire internal power supply that was really small. But this is an adapter. I had no idea such a thing exists, and because of how narrow, how the limit of the height on that Commodore 64 case, you can't get a regular power supply in there of any size other than just plugging this directly into the motherboard, and then you can power it through just the way you would a mini PC or a laptop. That's a very interesting solution. And again, I'm not a Commodore guy, but that's pretty darn cool. But way too expensive. It cost about $700 or $800 just to get a baseline machine. And that doesn't include whatever tariffs I might have to pay on top of that. So, but they have stuff in England I would love to get. And if I were in England, I could buy that much cheaper. But since I'm not in England, and even though I don't need it, it would be something fun to have. But sometimes Mike's unboxing reviews and how-tos, they'll show different case manufacturers that aren't sold here. Sharktoon, we can't get Sharktoon in the United States. And to import it in, it would cost 3 times more. So the reason for buying it is because it's a value. It loses all value, becomes the opposite trying to import it. And there's no warranty because we imported it. And if there's damage in shipping, too bad, so sad. So it doesn't make any sense, to bring something in unless you just want to roll the dice and hope for the best, which at that kind of money, there's local alternatives that are less expensive with warranties and guarantees that I don't have to take that risk. So that's the only thing about Mike's unboxing and reviews. And he could say the same about me. He could see me showing stuff available here that he can't get. He could shake our fists. Bill Sony says, will it work like a Commodore 64? No, it works like any other Windows-based computer. You could run emulation software on it, though. There's nothing about it that's Commodore 64 other than the case and the look. Everything else is Windows computer. I suppose you could put Linux on it. So just like any other Windows computer, you can throw an emulator on there and run your Commodore 64 software if you want to.
I did disable it, so
It is disabled?
yeah.
So if you guys want to try posting a link now, let's see if it works. Mara says that link should be working now. Patrick Benny says no go. If you guys refresh your page, Barry Klein said I just tried again, no success. Shows on my outbound screen, but not on my monitoring screen. So if you refresh the browser, I wonder if it's like a setting that's cached in there. Maybe a refresh will allow it. Or it may just be we have to, start a new stream and that those settings take effect when the stream restarts. So something to watch for next time. Mortant said I tried Carey's Amazon link. Yeah, the link shouldn't matter as long as the link's not too long and exceeds the message length allowed in the chat room. That would be a pretty long link. But a regular link, regardless of where it's from, should work now. But again, not sure. Like I said, if it's something we have to start, end the stream and start a new one for those changes to take effect, our hands are tied with how YouTube implements things, and YouTube is always changing things. So I think this did work, and I think YouTube changed it, but I'm not even certain because they're changing so much so often. It's hard to stay on top of it. Barry Klein said I just started a new session and still a no-go. All right, so it's probably on the stream settings then, right? So if I end the stream and create a new stream, I'm going to guess it's going to work. So, all right, well, I appreciate you guys trying it. Because I didn't, when I look at the stream settings while we're live, like I said, I don't get all of them. When before the stream, when Mara sets up schedules the stream, there's a lot more options. You said it's under community. I wonder if she was looking at comments instead of live chat. I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm sure I can Google it, and there's probably other content creators that have already dealt with this. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here. But Essential Working Towards said it worked when we were mods. Oh, I have no doubt that's true. Yeah. But on the other hand, that was turned off years ago, and why is this now the first I'm hearing about it? So something's different. Or there's been no reason to post links or bring it to my attention that you can't for the last 3 years. It doesn't seem likely. Possible. Bill wants to know if I think YouTube's fixed the memory leak for YouTube. No, my browser already crashed on me today, so definitely not. Some people have found by popping the chat out into its own window seems to solve it for them. Maybe that'll work for you. You just go to the 3 dots above the chat and then click pop out chat. It's one of the options towards the bottom. And I've been hearing from people saying that's really working well to prevent future memory leaks, or crashes rather. So if you want to try it, let us know. Tomorrow, I'm going to bring on, welcome back, Scott, Ask Your Computer Guy. And Scott recently, he did a video that just went viral. And, you know, he's super excited about it. We're certainly happy for him. And love to know how he did it. If we go over here to YouTube, and let's bring up Scott's channel. Scott Merrill is his name. Ask Your Computer Guy. And then we'll turn on the screen share here. And you'll see this one he just posted 2 days ago, which is in response to the video that went viral. If you look here, it says, if you still use Windows 10, you should do this now. This was posted 3 weeks ago and has over 1 million views. Of course, there's our friend Scott. And apparently this struck a chord with people because, of course, if you have 1 million views, look how many comments he's got from people in 3 weeks. That is really impressive. Here I was saying, hey, you could just use Hyadoc. Clearly, I found out that Hyadoc is not up anymore. I can By the way, guys, if you ever leave a comment and you make a mistake, you can edit your comment and you can say, oops, I was wrong. Right? And then resave your comment. You don't have to write 7 comments going, oh, see, I could say, oops, I was wrong. Damn it, I screwed it up again. Go back to the 3 dots, go back to edit. Oh, you know what? Just cancel this, 3 dots, and delete it. Just get rid of it. All right, this is in your hands. You don't have to just keep typing reply after reply to yourself. Oops, I meant to say, oops, autocorrect. Just re-edit your comment. It's a lot cleaner and you'd be a lot more successful at conveying your message before people give up and go, man, I'm not going to read 8 replies to this guy replying to himself, attempting once again to say what he was trying to say the first 7 times. So do know on YouTube you can do that. That is not a flattering picture of Scott. There we go. We'll find a better one. If you're interested in watching it, and I'm very interested personally on why this video did so well. And sometimes it's just a mystery to everybody. You know, he's got 213,000 subscribers, which is very respectable. And it's a great channel and he's a great guy. And I recommend you subscribe to his channel. But this has never happened to me. If I have 1 million views on a video, it's because the video has been up 10 years. That's just attrition. For him to get 1 million in 3 weeks, wouldn't that be great if that was his new norm, right? If he could just nail 3-4 videos in a row with that kind of viewership, he's on his way to, you know, PewDiePie type status, where at that point, everything you hit, everything you do is always going to hit. Think of it like the way it works on YouTube is, if you think of it like a comedian, Robin Williams, when he was first starting out, probably had to work hard to win people over. And after a certain amount of time, it didn't matter what he said. People were already like, okay, be funny. You're hilarious. And I think you're, and he goes, hi, how are you? Ha ha ha, that's so funny. Hi, how are you? Right? Versus, right? Because the mind is already set from the viewers. They love you and you can do no wrong. The Beatles, at the peak of their popularity, could have just slammed the guitars against the wall and that would have gone on to the top 10. Like, it was that ridiculous. They could do no wrong. But you don't get that right away. First, you have to get some level of success. And then you've got to hit that 2 or 3 times in a relatively short period of time. And then it takes a life of its own and you can sit back and go for a ride. And how long the ride is depends on how long it is before you screw it up, because a lot of times people think it's going to last forever and they end up saying something, tweeting something, or getting involved in some cryptocurrency thing, and their whole reputation's destroyed. And as quickly as they went up, it falls right down. And if it was hard to succeed before, at least where the level most of us are here on YouTube is kind of hovering above the ground. We're not in the sky, we're not in the clouds, but we're not on the ground. When you get smacked down to the ground, getting back up again and getting people to trust you because now they're skeptical, that's a very difficult thing. You know, when Linus Tech Tips had that whole controversy, there's still a lot of people that feel burned and offended by that. He's won a lot of people back, but it's going to take time. And by comparison, even when he's knocked down, he's still knocked down way above me. So it wasn't knocked completely down. But from his perspective, it was a long fall. And it's just to get back to where he was. You've got to be very careful. And if you play your cards right, you can get back to where you were and then continue growing again. But recovering from the fall can be harder than the actual climb, the initial climb. So if Scott, if he can hit 2, 3 more videos that has that magic, he's well on his way of every video always having magic. So we'll keep an eye on him and we'll talk about it tomorrow. And if you haven't watched that video, a million other people have. Could they all be wrong? Be sure and check it out and subscribe to him. He's a great guy. I think that'll wrap it up for today. We're a little over time here. Just looking in the chat. Essential Working Towards said, I believe Doug Bett's live stream has the ability. So what Doug is doing is something called commenter mode, or allowing people to have commenter status. This is why I say YouTube gets pretty confusing, because you've got members, you've got moderators, you've got channel administrators, which was fairly new. You've got commentators. You have people, there used to be an option for people to leave subtitles for you. You know, if there was somebody you trusted, you better trust them. Otherwise, they'll be having you say all kinds of things in different languages you'll never know about until you get the consequences of. I forget what that was called. I thought it was a commentator, but like I say, YouTube is changing it. And most of it we don't use, and it goes in one ear and out the other, because I'm like, I don't care. Oh, now it's all about shopping. Yeah, I don't care. But every Tuesday, YouTube has a Tuesday is News Day for content creators. And one of the YouTube employees that's there to just push PR and marketing, who doesn't actually have a channel or know what it's like to have their own channel, is paid by YouTube to represent the marketing side, to tell them, for them to tell you on behalf of YouTube everything they're doing to help you as a content creator. And most of the time they have no idea what it is to be a content creator, because they're sitting in a YouTube studio with YouTube employees that are filming them, editing them, and publishing them, and they don't have the struggle of gaining an audience. It's not their channel, it belongs to YouTube. They get replaced by somebody else, and then they become the new PR person, and then they're the genius who's all about YouTube, who's never had a YouTube channel in their life, and they keep dictating management decisions and how it's beneficial to you as a content creator, and how they're there for you when they're not, and they abandon you and they work you over. They let you get harassed with bots and spammers. They do nothing to prevent it. And at the same time, the employees are paid to toe the company line, who have no experience being content creators, or very limited, if any, to tell you how to be a better content creator. The whole thing is so offensive to me. So every week YouTube's talking about, oh, look what we've changed for you. I'm just like, really? And I have an email. Okay, thank you. Poor Mara has to go up, down the stairs every time to tell me we have an email. Get a light. Get a life or get a light? I should have known that answer was coming. Both, she says. Bill Sony wants to know, what does the purple crown mean? I'm not sure. I think Mara could probably tell you. Again, that's something YouTube turned on or made available, and I mistakenly turned it on. Maybe I didn't know what it was, but it was a new option. I don't remember doing it. So I don't know what it does, but I think Mara should be able to tell us. All right, we'll check the phone. Oh, our friend Mark Gaines with an Amazon gift card. Here's a little something for the channel, he says. Well, cheers, Mark. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks to all of you for being members and for hanging out with me today and kind of going over this build. Yeah, I thought I was done yesterday and still had a couple hours of work between the USB cable and going through the BIOS and testing.
Would you like me to address the little crown?
Yeah, would you like to come here and talk to us? We can hear you better if you're closer.
That's why I said, would you like me to address it?
And that's why I
Sorry,
said,
don't step on the
yeah.
car.
No, that's all right. If your hair gets all frizzy.
My hair gets all frizzy.
There, step over here so we can see you. We'll trade places.
Hi, everybody. So, the little crown.
Step more that way. That way. There. Okay.
Hi, camera. No, I'm just kidding. Hi, everybody. So I kind of explained this a little bit before during a couple of the public broadcasts. YouTube enabled something called the leaderboard, and it's a little fun and silly. It cannot be disabled. It's been enabled across the board. It was enabled in May of 2025. The leaderboard is supposed to be like a fun little reward, I guess, with that little indicator that shows viewer activity, viewer comments. I'm not really sure if it's like you do 5 comments and you get 1 badge or something like that little crown. But that's all it is. It isn't something we enabled. It's something that YouTube had done back in May of 2025.
When you say May of 20, you mean 2 days ago?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. They don't give you an actual date as to what day it was enabled, but they did roll it out initially to a few creators for testing. And I mean, it's cute, it's fun. If you click the little crown, it'll take you to the leaderboard and you can see what your crowns are or rewards. But that's all it is. It's just a silly little fun feature. We cannot enable it. We cannot disable it. That may be coming in the future.
I don't think they were complaining. They're just like, what is it?
Yeah, well, I was curious. I was like, what the heck is that?
Yeah, it surprised us too.
Yeah, but it did surprise us. It took us off guard, but that's what it is. It's like a leaderboard activity. Like I said, you can click the little crown and you can see there's a little tab that pops up and it kind of shows you activity, right, with your crowns.
You click on them?
And yeah, it's called XP, which is kind of weird. As a gamer, that's weird. I find that strange, but
they're trying to turn it into a
like a game. I don't know.
Into a competitive model
there
to increase engagement.
Yeah, and maybe that's exactly what that is. It's to increase engagement. So it's cute, it's fun, it's kind of silly, but there you go. That's what it is.
Patrick Manny says, "I don't want to be crowned. It might hurt." It does hurt. I know. Sean says, Carey, your build is fantastic. Well, Sean, you clearly have impeccable taste.
This is beautiful. Are you kidding me? Look at this. It's lovely. As someone who really likes a lot of fluff, this is fluffy enough. I like it.
Fluffy enough.
Fluffy enough.
Fluff enough.
Yeah. And you should see the new cases coming out from Comdex, or that were
Computex.
Is that Computex, yes. Super cool. There's some really neat, like an all glass case that's amazing. So yeah, Leon Lee. So
so David wants to know, if I became the leader, will I turn green with a gold head?
You might. I can't. I make no promises. Yeah.
Thomas Yeager says it feels like Twitch influence with the crown.
Yeah, that sounds quite
Wait, are you
familiar.
suggesting YouTube might copy TikTok and Twitch?
Oh, maybe.
Hmm.
Anybody say shorts? Which are stupid, by the way.
Tell me how you really feel.
Yeah.
Get back to work making shorts.
Absolutely.
Thank you for the information.
Hi, everybody.
We appreciate the info.
Of course.
All right, well, there you go. And we'll see how long that trend lasts before YouTube changes their mind yet again. So we become guinea pigs for the corporation who makes the decisions without our input or consent, in order to give us an option to opt out. It's out of our control. Boy, I sure hope someday Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Netflix realizes the potential for new source material for their streaming paid platforms by offering a free video platform like YouTube, which they could be using to identify fantastic content creators that they could probably pick up for pennies for new Amazon Prime only content or new Netflix only subscriber content. You know, you have this Hollywood controlled, well, it's basically Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York. Like, if you want to be into filmmaking, you have to go there. But we're living in an internet-connected world, and it doesn't make any sense why you should have to go somewhere to do any particular job unless it's mining, you know, something where you have to go to where the material is. So Hollywood is suffering right now. Like, they are barely getting any jobs, and they're competing against not only streaming services, but filmmakers that are taking their filmmaking outside of California where it's cheaper to make the film. They're getting tax incentives and all kinds of breaks to go somewhere else. And it's happening in such a mass amount right now. It's all over the news in California and LA that Hollywood people, folks that are relying on Hollywood for their income, are getting fewer and fewer jobs, writers and people that work on crew, and they can't afford to live in California. Without the regular income, it's too expensive to live there. And so for many people, this is a big, big issue because it means you're going to have to sell your house and move out of the state and find a new line of work. California is a very expensive place. No duh. But everything's very expensive there. And Amazon Prime has their own video. They have custom content. Apple has custom-made content. Netflix has custom-made content. And Elon with social media, although he doesn't necessarily need the source for cheaper, quality, unique custom content that would attract subscribers, paying subscribers to his service, he would, you know, as somebody who's like one of the most followed people on social media on the planet, he would benefit from that exposure by putting up some alternative, some competitor to YouTube. But certainly Jeff Bezos has justification for that investment. The people that run Netflix, even the people that run Apple TV. You and I both know there are some content creators here on the platform that are well underappreciated, and if you find them, I mean, you know they're fantastic. The quality is very professional. The writing is fantastic. Somebody that I really enjoy, look, we have late night talk shows all the time. One of the things that I like watching is somebody who wants to teach with a sense of humor and with a sense of sort of enthusiasm. Like, they get really worked up. So it's funny, like comedians like Louis Black. So you can think of a stand-up comedian who's also, let's say, a presenter about whatever the subject matter is, and they turn the whole subject matter that's not only factually correct as a lesson, but it has you laughing the entire time. So there's an actor, and this actor who's been in some stuff in all Chicago based. Guess where they live? They live in Chicago. And he has a YouTube channel, and it's called, I guess I gotta go to the right place, Chad the Birdcast. Like a podcast, it's a birdcast. And if I lived in Chicago, this is played at like little local pubs. I would be there every single time he's performing. It's like $12 to get in and see this guy. He's amazing. So his content is available on YouTube, thankfully, that you don't have to go to Chicago to see him. He's got 152 videos here. The Ballad of Leroy Jenkins is a fascinating story. The way he tells it is brilliant wordplay and poetry with enthusiasm and just absurdity, but also 100% true. And there's probably many of you don't know that that whole thing is a PR stunt. A lot of people believe that this whole Leroy Jenkins thing was recorded gameplay that just went viral, but it was created to emulate recorded gameplay and was created to go viral by a marketing company. And I did not know that until I watched this, and he even admits he didn't know it. So he's a little bit of a nerd, and then he'll talk about all kinds of things with in the news, or things like Star Wars. He goes off on Star Wars. He goes off on fonts, of all things. Talks about all the different fonts. And it is, I can't get enough of this guy. I just think he's fantastic. So apparently there's a big playlist here. But what I'm saying is, imagine if Netflix could say, for example, why don't you make content specifically for us? That gives Netflix something to offer that's not repeats and reruns. He would be very cheap compared to the cost of other content. And people might subscribe to your service and pay a monthly fee just so they can watch this, and this is the only place you can go to watch it. Like, I've seen plenty of actors and auditions on Britain's Got Talent or America's Got Talent, and these folks have YouTube channels, have been playing this role for years. But I never saw them on YouTube. I saw them on America's Got Talent. Then I Googled them, found out they've been doing this for years on YouTube, and they act like, you know, oh, I'm a dancer, or whatever. And then you find out, oh, they're not just a dancer. They got a whole channel to dancing, and they've been doing it for years. Well, if you think about that, you got a guy here who's writing these scripts that are brilliantly, in my opinion, written so well, factually verified, and he does it in a way that's so different and so unique. He would be very inexpensive, I imagine. So take a look at like Joe Rogan and the deal he made with Spotify. So if you want to listen to Joe Rogan, there's a $100 million deal there. Holy moly. So how much other great content is out there that's being completely overlooked by Netflix and Amazon Prime and other media streaming services that charge for subscriptions and end up, you know, Apple TV, do you know how much money they spend to make content? Let me Google it real quick. How much investment Apple TV 2024? Shows like Severance and things like that. In 2024, Apple TV spent $7.3 billion to create content, and it's expected to increase to $7.5 billion this year. Despite gaining subscribers and generally generating critically acclaimed shows, Apple TV is reportedly losing over $1 billion a year due to the high cost of producing original programming. But if Apple came out with an alternative to YouTube and was secretly scouting show, well, it doesn't have to be secret, looking for professional or promising content made by people that are doing it for free, bringing the ideas and imaginations of content creators, how much could they save in production? And at the same time, give these content creators have their dreams come true by, you know, actually being on a streaming service and with a proper crew and budget. How promising could that hold to the future of their own careers, the opportunities the streaming service has above their competitors, and the benefit to the audience getting some variety in content that doesn't follow all the same old formulas necessarily. How come this hasn't happened yet? Why hasn't Amazon Prime stepped into the spot? Jeff Bezos is a smart guy. How is he missing this? The people that run Netflix, how are they missing this? And Apple TV, the people that pride themselves, Apple Computer, on not, on fighting the conformity, why haven't they thought of it? It's definitely not a money problem as far as, the cost to get it started. It's a missed opportunity for the content creators. It's a missed opportunity for the companies that could sign deals with these folks. And, look, they don't need a commitment. They could just be another YouTube, offer the same kind of deal, but maybe reach out to with us. Camera 2, something happened to camera 1 just now. That was weird. Now it came back. Okay. Weird. Apparently YouTube doesn't like me talking about this. Conspiracy theory. Anyway, I hope it happens. Essential Working Towards said, for your information, a YouTube leaderboard is a feature that ranks and displays the most engaged viewers during a live stream, often based on their interaction with the stream. But I don't know what that means. To what end? Like, what does that do? Hey, there's Oystein joining us from Norway. He says hello. Good to see you, Oystein. Patrick, man, he said Apple's going to have to raise their rates. There's Planet Cryos. He says, I'm here now. Can you start over? Well, hello, Planet Cryos, and welcome in. Today, it's the 2nd of June. It's Monday, 2025. Welcome into the show. Today, I want to start off by talking to you about the computer and the struggles I had getting this to run. There's a glitch in the matrix. Everybody's like, this is all deja vu. Hey, give the man his $2 worth. Okay, if you want the rest, it's another $2. No, don't do that. Just rewind. He knows. Margain says, yikes, your head was awfully big there for a second. Yeah, that's not the first time I've heard that. Planet Kraus has been like a BIOS updating madman lately. I think his last 4 or 5 videos, it's here's how we update the BIOS on this one. Here's how we update the BIOS on that one. What's great about it is to have that comparison to see how their different makes and models of boards have a similar but different process. So I'm glad he's doing it. And if you guys are looking for that content, it's great content, but it's not necessarily content that's maybe being recommended by the YouTube algorithm for whatever reason. You have to know to go and look for it. And if you subscribe to him, then at least that way, if you turn notifications on, you don't have to worry about forgetting, because it'll remind you when he posts new content. I think if you watch his content, you'll want to subscribe to it. So be sure and check it out. Planet Cryos has been making videos again. So we're happy to see him doing that. We want to encourage him to keep going. Oystein contributes 100 Norwegian kroner. He says, I don't want XP, just the test. You don't want any experience points or Windows XP. Thank you, Oystein. All right, with that, we're wrapping up for today. I'm sure that customer is still waiting for me to call him back. I told him it'd be about 4 o'clock, so I got 20 minutes to unwind and shut things down. And thank goodness for remote access. In the meantime, Thank you for making me aware about the links not working, the crowns, and then in return, I'm making you aware about PL1 and PL2 settings, right? I love the back and forth here. Still being a potential issue, something to watch for if you have an Intel 12th gen, 13th gen, 14th gen, or 15th gen. And PBO settings, if you have the latest AMD 9th generation processors, something you might want to watch for. So you're not immune simply because it's AMD or Intel. If you are ignoring it and it's not causing you any problems, it's fine. But if you're curious, or if you are wondering, why does my computer seem like the fans are on all the time? Is it running hot? That HWI program, Hardware Info, is free. You don't have to install it. Just run the 64-bit executable file and take a look at what your temps are and take a look at what your PL1 and PL2 are. You can leave that running in the background, use your computer throughout the day, just pay attention to the recorded maximums it hit throughout the day, and you can gauge, is this something you need to be worried about, or is it not an issue? Regardless, if your PL1 and PL2 are set to 250 each, and it's not creating a problem for you, everything's running fine, you don't need to fix it. But then if you want to run Cinebench on it and realize now it's overheating, do you really need to fix it? That's for you to decide. Planet Cryo says, here's $2 for the rest of the information. The rest of the video. That'll be coming right at you here as soon as we end it. You can start right over from the beginning. Thank you, Planet Cryo. Andy Kane also renews his membership. He's a member now for 22 months. Great community as always. I don't know what the follow-up with Ray ever was, if he was able to then look at his backups he made that he's trying to restore. But, you know, I want to encourage you again. You can reach out to us in email. We love hearing from you guys, by the way. So I don't want you to think, oh, I'm sorry to bother you. You're not bothering me. Please reach out. We love hearing from you guys. That's our email address. That's the best way to reach us. That's going to wrap it up for me for today. And of course, thanks to Mara for all the help and information she has provided. And we'll check those links next broadcast to see if the setting sticks, you know, on the next broadcast. So if I don't remember, remind me, give it a shot, see what happens. Yeah, that's going to be it. Thank you for watching. We'll see you all again tomorrow with Scott and Merrill, Ask Your Computer Guy. Until next time, bye for now. Oh, and thank you for the Amazon gift cards and your super chats. It's rude of me. Thanks to each and every one of you. Now, bye for.